You're listening to episode 16 of the Divine Nobodies podcast.
Sing along with me, Jen. You know the words. You know the song, right? We've heard it enough times.
Oh my God, I hear it in my dreams.
Here we go. Boom, we're back. Divine Nobodies podcast. I'm your host, Eric Cayce. I'm joined by a very, very talented woman. She can actually solve a Rubik's Cube in under 20 seconds. The only person that I know that I can actually astral project and take her body with her. Joined by my co-host, Jennifer Lynn. Jen, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's good to be back. Just you and I in the studio this time.
Yeah, blinded by our new ring light.
Exactly. Blinded by the new ring light. It's crazy how much it changes.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you guys are on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Stay up to date on our most recent episodes. And we'll continue posting them. It's good to be back.
Yeah.
It's good to be back. We had a couple rounds of just interviews, and Jameson was a fantastic guest to have in. Learned a lot from him.
Always love having Jameson. He's awesome.
Yeah. So it's good to be back. And we're here doing it.
Yeah, we're here doing it.
Yeah. How was your weekend?
It was good. I was a little bummed though, because this is Burning Man week. So
That's right.
Yeah. So this is a time that I would be in Burning Man. And
that's true. This is the only time you haven't gone, right? You went the previous year before?
Yeah. And the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that. So yeah.
So how many years total have you gone so far?
5.
Wow.
4 or 5. How many? 4 or 5.
Whoa.
I lose track, but yeah.
That's so great. I have a lot of friends that actually go to Burning Man, and I know that they have been sort of conditioned to that experience, because every good story that they tell always starts with, hey, when I was at Burning Man. You ever
Right.
go through that whole thing?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I've heard a lot of really amazing stories from my friends that have actually attended there, and I still have yet to go. Right. So how does it feel not being able to participate this year?
Empty.
Really?
You know? Yeah. I feel like
Your heart feels empty.
Yeah, my heart feels empty. I feel like a piece of my life is missing. It's crazy.
Is it true that with Burning Man, because I know it's a sort of like the lottery system that happened every year, right?
It's a pain in the ass to get tickets.
Close to impossible to do it. Is it true that if you parachuted in to Burning Man, that they let you stay for free?
That's what I hear. And I do have a skydiving license. So believe me, I did consider it.
You have a skydiving license?
Yeah. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. I have like 2,000 jumps.
No shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really?
And I used to base jump too.
That is really interesting. How long have you been doing that for?
Oh no, I did that in my 20s. Like
Really?
That was years ago, but yeah.
So your skydiving days are over.
My skydiving days are over. Yeah. Yeah. I had a couple close calls base jumping, and base jumping is a little bit different. Skydiving, super safe. Like no problem. You have a backup parachute. Even if something happens, you're going to be all right. But base jumping, like, it's not as high. You're really low. You only have one parachute. Even if you did have two, you would splat on the ground before you had a chance to pull it anyway. So yeah.
When I was younger, I used to kind of struggle with it. I didn't like the idea of doing it because of all the possibilities of just user error and things going wrong. And this idea that like this parachute, this cloth that is, I imagine the person that's responsible for packing these chutes has a really large responsibility for the lives of other people, because I just think of that it's such a delicate thing that what happens if it doesn't open up?
So yeah, what happens if it doesn't open up is you have a reserve. Like if you're skydiving, you can pull your reserve and you're going to be fine. You also have an altimeter. So it's like a little computer on your back that reads your altitude. So even if somebody knocked you out, like somebody kicked you while you were in a skydive with another person and it knocked you out, if you got too low, it would deploy your second chute for you. So, you're obviously, if you're knocked out, you're not going to be steering your parachute. So you're probably going to hit a tree or, smack the ground, but it won't be nearly as bad as a free fall. So,
So from your experience, just walk me through that whole process, because it's something that I still, want to do one day. And it's on that sort of that list of 100 things that we wanted to do. That bucket list thing, which is the skydiving as I get older. I think it's also because of my fear of death, just sort of like slowly diminishing over time. Yeah. And I know that it is a very beautiful experience.
It is very liberating. If I feel like skydiving is something that everybody should do at least one time. Yeah. I say that about a few things, but skydiving is definitely on the list of like the top 5 things that everybody should do. It's very liberating, very freeing. After your first sky skydive, you feel like you can just do anything.
Yeah.
So especially if you're somebody that struggles with like issues with confidence, like go skydive and you'll feel like you can conquer the world.
Yeah. And I think I've seen like shows where people, they overcome really large fears doing things like that. So when I think of like that free fall, I just think of like the tallest roller coaster at like Six Flags, where you get that feeling in your stomach of falling. Is it just feel that way all the way down?
No. And it doesn't feel like that at all, actually, because the plane is moving forward. So whenever you jump out, the plane's moving forward at, whatever, 120 miles an hour. Yeah. So whenever you jump out, you're bleeding off that forward speed. So you never feel like you're falling. You never have that roller coaster stomach in your throat feeling. Now, when you base jump, you do have that feeling because you're at a standstill and it's your body, you're feeling your body accelerate.
I see.
But whenever you jump out of a plane, you don't feel your body accelerate because it's like out of the frying pan and into the fire. You know what I mean?
Next time you're up there, though, I imagine you'll probably skydive at least some point in the future.
No.
Do me a favor and try and tell me if the earth seems flat to you.
It's definitely not flat. It's definitely not flat.
Yeah. Those crazy people, man.
Yeah.
And there was actually like a flat earth panel back at Lighting in a Bottle. I think it was like 2015. And I obviously don't believe that the earth is flat. No. Because how do you explain the curvature of the earth?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So every picture that we have from NASA and every satellite in the world is fake. I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah. Like the government takes forever to do everything, including process things like taxes and mail out, driver's licenses from the DMV. Like, how could they possibly cover that up?
Right. No,
they're not that good.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying?
They're not that good.
Yeah. So when you did the skydiving thing, when you jumped out, did you always jump out with people? Was there a lot of other people?
Yeah. So you want to wait until the plane's full and it has a full load before they'll take everybody up. Yeah. And you jump out like one by one, or you can jump out in a group if you're doing like a group skydive. Or, with one other person. So there's different disciplines of skydiving. So there's people who belly fly, who, go on their stomach. And then there's people that go like sit fly or head down. And whenever you're in those positions, you fall a lot faster. Yeah. So those people are usually the last people out. So the belly flyers will like go first because they're a little bit slower.
I'd be like one of those people that like,
or the reverse. Sorry, I had that backwards.
Yeah. I would want to land in like someplace maybe towards Northern Cal, like Bakersfield. Well, there's nothing in sight, and I want to like get a troop of people, and I'll dress up in like animal onesies or something. Yeah, and then like bring like a kitchen table out there and do that whole like pretending like we're having tea together.
Oh my gosh, that would be so fucking hard. Because
they get pretty creative with those things, right?
Yeah, they do. So my home, I guess. My home base jumping site in Houston was called Skydive Spaceland. And that's where I did my first jump and was trained there. It was actually super fun. But my dad has a valve machine shop that is down the street from the drop zone. Yeah. So when people land off, they land off at my dad's like company, and he'll put them in his truck and take them back to to the drop zone if they happen to land off. Yeah. But yeah, that was a huge part of my life at that time. But I got to the point where I just wasn't scared of skydiving anymore. Yeah. And you don't want to be to the point where you're not scared anymore. There still needs to be like a little bit of fear. Right. But even the
second you get comfortable,
right, is when shit goes wrong. And I've had stuff go wrong. And you were talking about like having your chute packed. There were certain people, because I didn't pack my own chute. It's exhausting to fold it up and pack it up. You have to have a lot of arm strength. And just be strong in general, because you're getting a giant ass parachute and a tiny ass backpack,
Yeah. I can't even fold my clothes when I take them out of the dryer.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
I imagine that it's very precise when it comes to how it needs to be folded, right?
For sure. And there's packers that are way better than others that are a lot more precise and fold in a certain way that, that you just have easy openings. So you would find your person that you liked, and you had to pay them. It's $10 per like pack job. Yeah. So if you're doing, I don't know, 5 to 10 jumps in a day, it gets expensive because your jumps are like $50 a jump, or unless you buy a big package, they're like 25. Yeah. But then in addition to having somebody pack for you, so a lot of skydivers pack themselves. Yeah. But I didn't pack myself because I'm a sloppy packer. So
sloppy packer.
Yeah, I'm a sloppy packer.
Oh my gosh. That should be like your tagline on your Instagram.
Right. It's like,
oh man.
Yeah. It's like, feels like a whole another world now. Now I'm pushing 40 and you know, that was like 20 years ago. It's fucking crazy to think about that.
So there's obviously a lot of different things that go through somebody's mind when it comes to skydiving. Obviously people have a huge fear of it. Right? Yeah. So how did you feel once you obviously approached it, stepped up to the plate with that fear? And then once you finished the skydive, how did that feel? How did that change your relationship to fear?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I was not afraid during my first skydive. I didn't have fear almost at all. I was actually super relaxed, which was weird. But my first base jump, I was very scared. And, just because there's such a high risk of death. Like if something goes wrong, you are going, like shit's going down. It's not going to be good, you know? So, with base jumping, it needs to be like 100% precise and 100% accurate. You need to be really focused, like the whole nine. So, that changed, base jumping really did change my relationship to fear and my relationship to death, because I got kind of close to dying a couple times. But you know, now I'm cool with it. But another reason why I don't skydive or base jump anymore, because I just don't have enough fear. Does that make sense? Yeah.
It makes sense. And I imagine it. I mean, I've read things and I've spoken to people that I've skydived, some friends that are also some burner friends, and they love doing stuff like that. And I asked them that same question, you know, what goes through your mind through an experience like that? And they're like, the fear is something that they typically only feel when they're in the plane. But the second you jump out of the plane, it all just disappears.
Yeah.
Like the present moment takes over you so intensely that you're not even in that sort of mind frame to even think about it. You know what I mean? Because there's something, and I imagine this is the reason why people like it so much, is because you have to be 100% present with that experience. Right.
You're not thinking about anything else. That's for sure.
And that is almost, I feel like, can be looked at as a form of meditation.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. You know? I never thought of it. In my 20s, I wasn't meditating. So I didn't even know what meditation was. So you were meditating before you even thought you were meditating. Before I even knew. Yeah. So
Yeah. It's all different ways and forms that people meditate. And I imagine those people that jump out of those things, like, it's probably very therapeutic for them too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And there are some aspects to it. I haven't done parachuting and things like that, but I've had experiences through astral projection that felt like a free fall.
Oh yeah.
You know,
oh yeah.
That you feel that sort of butterfly in your stomach. And the biggest question I had is like, does it feel that way all the way through? Because there's parts of it that are kind of unbearable, especially on a roller coaster when you're like, oh shit. And it just like completely takes you over.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe we should go try it.
Yeah. I haven't thought about it in a long time. I used to have dreams about it all the time, but I haven't thought about skydiving in a lot of years. So
I saw that video one time. I think it was like a Red Bull commercial where they had that guy like skydiving from space.
Yes, that was crazy. That? Yes. Yeah,
that was insane.
When I saw that, I was like, no fucking way.
Yeah, right? Yeah. That's because you can see the blackness of space around him.
Yeah.
And it's just free falling all the way through.
I can't even
imagine how much precision is involved in order to make that happen.
Oh my gosh. And they had to account for how long he would be passed out too. You know, like that's so crazy. Yeah. Can you imagine like passing out and then waking up and you're still in fucking space free falling? Whoa, what?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I
know. It's crazy.
I've had a few experiences exactly like that, but they weren't actually free falling.
Yeah.
Might as well have been though. But astral projecting, I feel like this is probably the closest that I come. And then also through some sort of channeling work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was something that I was actually reading about the other day. And I think me and Jen were talking about it before the podcast, which is something that I feel like has a lot of mystery behind it. And I think at the very core, the people that have brought it to light more so than anybody else, I think, is the Theosophy Society and the Egyptians.
Yeah, the Egyptians. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is the Akashic Records, right?
Yeah, the Akashic Records.
The Akashic Records. So if anybody that's listening, you guys are interested in the Akashic Records, I mean, there's a huge movement around it. If you're in part of the spiritual New Age community, you've probably heard it around. There's also healers out there that you can visit with and share some space with. More often than not, you'll find psychics that have this type of dynamic, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're able to access this sort of field, right? This data sphere.
Yeah.
of information.
Right.
And everybody has it in common, right?
Yeah. Past, present, future, every thought, intent, feeling, action, word, whatever. It's all there happening at the same time.
Yeah. At the same time, it's not a linear thing. Akashic, actually, the Sanskrit is a Sanskrit word, which means ether, right? So it can basically be equated to just space.
Yeah.
Right. And the way that I see it, I try and kind of piece this together in the most practical way that I can, because I have, my pendulum sort of swings between the woo-woo and between the practical. Right. But the one thing from my experience in after death studies and researching the work of like Raymond Moody and PMH Atwater is that a lot of the people that pass away, or people that have near-death experiences where they get close, it's common for them to have something like a life review. Yeah. Right. For that, it was in Betty Eadie's book, Embraced by the Light, where the second you enter into that sort of portal where you're shooting down this, but it's different for everybody, but the more common story is that you're shooting like this cannon through this portal. And then eventually you end up meeting with either a guide or an angel or something akin to Jesus Christ. I'm one of those people that looks at a more universal perspective, which is if you're a Christian and you die Christian and you have an affinity to Jesus, and you want him, or you expect him to show up at the end of your life, he'll probably show up.
He'll be there.
Yeah, he'll be there. And the same thing, if you're a Buddhist and you have an affinity to, Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, like he'll show up too. Yeah. If your avatar just happens to be, I don't know, like Bugs Bunny or something, like whoever it is that that embodies that feeling of peace and that tranquility and that beauty in you. Yeah. I would love for Alan Watts to show up. Oh, how cool would that be? With his little cigar, and he just kind of has this sort of like that very warm sort of like grandfather laugh. Yeah. Just like, I'll say something like really clever and he'll just sort of like, you know what I mean? So I'd love to see Alan Watts. If you're listening, just meet me there. Alan Watts, Judah Krishnamurti, and he's like the cranky, like tough love grandfather. Yeah. You wrote a lot of really, really great books, and I hope that he shows up too. But basically, if whatever you identify in your mind as being God or having that position of being God, I feel like he will show up at the end of your life. Yeah. He'll hold your hand, and that life review happens on the screen of your consciousness. But from my experience reading about it, it's like a 360 view. Yeah. Right. A lot of people will liken it to like a psychedelic experience because in that perspective, like you're seeing things not in a linear way. It's like your complete awareness is filled with this. And imagine like seeing your life, every single moment, every single memory in your life happening simultaneously all at once. Right. Right. Yeah. That's what a lot of people, I used to think in the beginning, it was like, okay, they would go in some sequential order where it's like you start at when you're a kid, you go to when you grow up. Right. Now, from what I've read, it's all at once. It's all happening at once. Yeah. And it's hard for the mind to piece that apart and try and make sense of that. Yeah, I think because it's the whole free will piece, right? As we change and we grow, the Akashic Records are updated. So it's just like, I'll compare it to the cloud. Whenever we save stuff on our computers or on our phones and it goes into the cloud, like, where's the cloud? Yeah. That cloud's full of a lot of information. So this is like the ancient cloud. Yeah, exactly. The ancient cloud. And I don't lose your password to that shit. You don't lose your password. I mean, you might be able to get it reset. Maybe. But you may have to come back again in order to be able to do it. You got to like resetting your password is basically like the equivalent of like, okay, we'll reset your password, but you got to go through this round again. Oh, man. Oh. And that sounds like an arduous experience to us because we know what it's like to be alive for 30 plus years so far. But the second our soul leaves our body and enters into the astral realm, God says, hey, you want to go in again? You're like, yeah, that wasn't bad. Yeah, because it'll seem like a day to you. It'll seem like an instant to you. Right. And then when we enter into our bodies again, it's like, oh crap, I got to do like another 100 years of this. Oh my God. Do you remember being a kid and feeling, it feels like when you're a little kid, the days last forever. They do. Forever. And now I feel like a day goes by in a blink. Yeah. I think it's just because we're so present with what we're doing. And there weren't a whole lot of things that were occupying our consciousness back then. That's true. Because I like when I kind of perceiving my life, it's really easy, especially when people wake up in the morning. It's like, okay, I have my work over here. I have my hobbies over here. I have my girlfriend over here. I have my partner over here. And all those occupy spaces in your mind. I think when you're a kid, you're kind of just filled with this sense of like just pure innocence and wonder. And, you know, there's that sort of intrinsic feeling of like that timelessness, that it's like that place that we're all looking for. We're looking to return back to as we get older and realize that what it is that we were looking for isn't exactly the way that we wanted, that we were expecting.
Right.
What I find myself doing once I started actually getting into studying about the life reviews that happen at the end of life, sometimes I'll have really beautiful moments, right? I'll have a beautiful moment. Maybe it might be with a woman, maybe I might be with friends, having a good time. Mm-hmm. And I'll look up at the sky as if I'm looking at myself watching the life review of me.
Whoa.
Right?
That's cool.
Because you're creating that sort of like that note to yourself. Mm-hmm. So at the end of my life, and I'm
that
going
imprint,
through
it's like
imprint. And then with the end of my life, when I'm going to life review, I'm going to look at me and just going to go,
gotcha.
I see you. You know what I'm saying?
I love that.
Yeah. Doing things for sort of like futuristic type of outcome.
Yeah.
You know, but like so the Akashic Records, a lot of these people that go through these life reviews see their whole life. And where does that come from? I feel that it comes from the Akashic Records. Yeah. Right. So Edgar Cayce, they called him the sleeping prophet. He was probably the most obvious one, the one that people know of more than anybody else. He would go into these trance-like states, and aside of just giving people readings about health and wellness, mm-hmm. he also was able to access this place. And what he likened it to was basically just like this data sphere of information, like this archive. Right. It's like this huge ass bookshelf.
Like a giant ass library.
A giant ass library that like contains not even just your life all the way up until this point. It also contains every probable outcome of where your actions may lead you. Mm-hmm. It contains, you know, every past life you've ever had. And just like you said, it's not something that's linear. It's all happening at once, mm-hmm. you know? So everything that you do, down to taking one step forward or one step back, or like, you know, anything gets recorded in this. Yeah. Right. And he developed ways of going to this trance-like state and accessing this information in order to give people information about who they were in their past lives, the type of work that they have to do. And as far as I understand, there's a lot of really amazing information that we can learn about ourselves there. Oh, for sure. The question is, well, how do we get there?
How do we get there? Yeah. You know? And there's lots of famous people. Einstein was definitely a believer of the Akashic Records. He thought that everything happened in the quantum field through quantum waves, mm-hmm. and that's where we could access our consciousness. Yeah. So it's thought that he claimed that he received his ideas for his inventions and the theory of relativity just like came into his mind out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And that's what he said. It just like popped in. Yeah. And it makes you kind of wonder about ideas that just pop in your head. Right. Has this ever happened to you? Do you just have like a, I mean, not like an Einstein, not the theory of relativity, but can you imagine some shit like that popping in your head?
Well, yeah, it's like when we talked about on a few episodes so far, it's like when you have dreams about people you've never seen before. Yeah. But somehow in the dream world, they're plays very specific roles. Right. The same thing with, and I agree. I've had experiences like that where it's like, well, why do people have more of an affinity to very specific things? Mm-hmm. People are like, well, maybe it's from their father. Okay, great. That's fine. You're inheriting a certain type of energy that wasn't initially part of you, but is actually a part of you. And the same thing when it comes to, some people are just able to paint really well, or some people are good singers. It's like, mm-hmm. I know a lot of people that practice, 24 hours a day at their craft, and they still don't have it in them. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like they try it, but there are some people that just have the grace of knowing how to do something.
Didn't you tell me, I think it was you that told me a story about someone that you know that, that went blind or went deaf. I can't remember, lost one of their senses and then came back and was like an amazing painter. Yeah.
Actually, really, really amazing woman. She actually hosts a podcast called Deja Blue podcast. Her name's Charlotte. And we'd been friends for many, many years. And when I actually first met her, she is an extremely powerful woman. Mm-hmm. She has a lot of wisdom to share. And I do believe that she's had several past lives in these sort of positions of being a teacher and being a healer. Mm-hmm. So when I had first met her, it was during like a Christmas sort of gathering years ago. This is probably 2015 or so. And she was telling me a story about how she was going deaf. Mm-hmm. Right. And I knew right away because when she would talk, she would pay attention to my lips. That's how she, communicated with other people. Right. And she could still hear, but it was very difficult for her. And she had a psychedelic experience with DMT, right? Mm-hmm. And she came back from that experience. Well, first, just backtrack a little bit. She wasn't really a painter or an artist before. And when she came back from this experience, she was suddenly compelled to pick up a paintbrush and actually start painting things. Mm-hmm. And so she did. And she makes some of the most beautiful artwork that I've ever seen, especially I've ever seen for somebody that didn't spend their entire lives doing it. It's like she came back from this place, just like Neo in the Matrix, and was like, oh, and I got this download. Now I know Kung Fu. Like now she knew how to paint just after this one experience. Yeah. And if you've seen some of this art, it's amazing. Yeah. Like it's unbelievably beautiful. Like, how do you explain that? Right.
Well, I mean, I think that what that says to me is that the ability to predict or access Akashic records or to do anything that is mystical has nothing to do with our traditional five senses, right? Right. So that reminds me of a story of, and I'm going to butcher her name, Baba Vanga. She's like the female Nostradamus in Bulgaria.
Sounds right to me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just going to go with it because I think that's how you say her name. So in and around in the 1920s, there was a tornado and she was picked up by this tornado and as a child and lived in a very poor Bulgarian village, didn't read, didn't write. This is in the 20s, mm-hmm. And she woke up, left for dead. Her parents found her and her eyes were full of sand. And she went blind from the sand that was in her eyes. So after she went blind, she started having these like super enhanced visions and was able to access Akashic records. Yeah. And because of that, she predicted a lot of like major things that happened. Yeah. 9/11, the Chernobyl explosion, Stalin. I mean,
she knew all of it.
Yeah, she knew all of it. So it's really interesting to me that somebody who, wasn't literate, there was no TV or radio back in that time where she could have accessed any of this information, right? And she's world famous for, accessing Akashic records and making these predictions. Yeah. So
yeah,
similar story.
Yeah. And there's a few other people that I had read that sort of embodied that same sort of dynamic when it came to, I guess, their experience with the Akashic records, the Egyptian deity Thoth. Yeah. Yeah. He was responsible for creating the emerald tablets.
He's the guy with the bird.
Exactly.
Bird face.
Exactly. And you can actually still go online and read those tablets. And it's very much akin to something that we would read in New Age spirituality. So a lot of what influenced his practice were the Akashic records.
I put that on my list of things to read about. I wanted to read about the emerald tablets and what was in them. Do you know what's in them? Like what it was translated to?
It's a really complex thing. We'll probably have to go into another, but it's
that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. It's a whole nother podcast, but the emerald tablets, you should definitely check it out. There's also a few other people. There was this guy named Alfred Percy Sinnett. He studied esoteric Buddhism and he kind of came across that field in 1883. And then Dr. Irving Laszlo, he's an astrophysicist, kind of along the same vein as Albert Einstein. And he was starting to research just quantum mechanics. And he came up with quantum zero-point energy, which was also discovered by Albert Einstein. And they both looked at it as sort of like this data sphere. So 0-point energy is, I guess, when I'm trying to make sense of this, there's no space, really. There's no empty space in the space that we occupy. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think of when they look into the blackness of space, that there's sort of like a distance between me and you and somewhere where Mars is. Right. But everything from the space between me and you is filled with information. Like those dimensions that exist, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Most people think of it as like, you know, Earth being on a 3D dimension, and then we sort of ascend into, you know, the ether or the firmament, and somehow those dimensions are up there. But all those dimensions are in this room right now.
Right.
Right. And they're all happening at once. So at the very smallest, I want to say subatomic particle, exists this sort of like 0 point energy. And apparently this is where they feel those Akashic records are.
Ah,
you know what I mean?
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can go online, and there's, you know, obviously lots of different practices and ways in order to access it. I've even actually sat along in did a sound bath a while back. And a woman came and did a live sort of channeling of the Akashic records while I was doing a sound bath.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really cool.
We need to call her. Maybe we can get her on the show.
Yeah. I could.
Yeah.
I could do that.
Yeah.
There's a woman, I think her name was Elizabeth Gilbert. I could be butchering her name, but I think I sent you that profile of hers a little while ago. And I think we could actually get her on, and she does do live channelings.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Of the Akashic records.
You know, you were just talking about how Einstein and the other guy discovered, what was this, 0 point energy at the same time. There is a really interesting paper that was written by a couple of Columbia professors, Dorothy Thomas and William Ogburn. It's called Are Inventions Inevitable? So this is a pretty like common phenomena that multiple people discover inventions at the same time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But on opposite ends of the earth that have no knowledge of each other or of each other's work, or that anybody else is working
Isn't
on
that
this.
like quantum entanglement theory?
Yeah.
Sort of thing?
So they came up with like 148 instances, like that they were comparing of people coming up with the same inventions with no knowledge of each other, which is really, really interesting, and maybe supports the Akashic record theory that, you know, are inventions inevitable if that person, you know, didn't bring it to light, or are they spreading these records around so other people could advance our society? I don't know.
It seems to me, because the biggest question that comes when it comes to how to access the Akashic records is how do you do that?
Yeah.
And we were talking about Charlotte a few minutes ago, and it makes me think of Helen Keller. Remember Helen Keller?
Yeah.
So I've read actually a few of her books.
Oh, yeah.
And she was a
badass,
a God-fearing Christian woman.
Yeah.
I mean, we know the sort of like popular culture's perspective of her, but I read a book. I actually don't have it here. I just thought about it right now, but it was a book about her life and her practice in Christianity. Right. And she kind of has like a theology sort of perspective, a more universalist type of perspective. But the interesting thing about Helen Keller is that she obviously is deaf. She's obviously blind, and
she's mute.
And she's mute. I mean, I couldn't imagine. I mean, it may not be any consequence to her because she grew up that way,
right?
Like she was born that way, right? For when I think in my mind of like what it would be like to not be able to see or hear, I mean, that would be a very interesting experience for me.
Right.
Right. But or talk. And fortunately for us, we've been blessed with the gift of all those things. But for her, how listening to her talk and the amount of wisdom that she had to share, and knowing that this person had never seen a sunset before, she had never know what specific things look like. When she would go to sleep and have these dreams, they would be very vivid. Like she was still able to see just in these different realms. But the strength of, I want to say, her third eye was probably more pronounced and more polished than ours, because she doesn't have any sort of extrasensory thing taking her away from that experience.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So listening, reading over her book, like she had so much wisdom. She was an amazingly intelligent teacher, you know? So I imagine like the one thing that prevents a lot of just regular human beings from accessing it, or maybe our ideas of what it means to get there. And all of the different things that cloud our sort of judgment and our awareness all the time that prevent us from really going deep, you know? Yeah. And I think you had some steps, right? Some different methods that we could share. And this is the thing, like, I feel like anybody that's listening, I guarantee you that all of you at some point have been to this place, whether or not you are cognizant of it. when you sleep and you dream, there's a huge chance that this information that you get is coming from these Akashic records.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So if you've been in dreams and you run into people that you didn't know but swear were real, or if you've had visions of the future, or if you've had visions of the past, it could be in your waking state, also in the sleep state, chances are you have been there. I also think that people that do tarot card readings, because tarot cards and oracle cards are really about the potentiality and the probability of how your current actions are going to affect your immediate future. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what the Akashic records are, right? It's like, it'll contain every outcome to whatever moment that we're in, but it's fluid. So it's always constantly changing.
Right.
But the one thing that I read is that in order to deliberately go into there, you have to sort of like a lot of people do prayers. You have to sort of ask for the permission.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to ask the permission in order to get there.
Yeah. And what I love about this is that anybody can access it, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like with a lot of other new age stuff, you have to like jump through hoops and there has to be like some kind of initiation to access this level of knowledge or whatever.
That's true.
But with the Akashic records, anybody can access them. You just have to ask for it and meditate on it, and information will be received.
Yeah. I feel like there's a law of court. Well, actually there's the fellow named Emanuel Swedenborg, and he was a theologian, and theology, I won't get too much into it, but it was basically like the Christian mystery school. And he was basically this scientist and this inventor. And I'll actually share this book with you, Jen, because I think that you would find it really, really interesting. He wrote this book called Heaven and Hell. Mm-hmm. And he also wrote a few other books. There's actually the Swedenborg Foundation, and they have like this arsenal of really amazing books that are based off of this fellow's work. So he had, this is really, really long time ago, but he started as an inventor and a scientist. And then one day he woke up. He was a Swedish scientist. He woke up and started having these daytime visions of angels coming to him and speaking to him. Oh. Right. And this was somebody that was a skeptic.
Yeah.
Right? He wasn't into this because it wasn't widely accepted in his community, especially in the position that he was in. So he didn't know how to go about trying to interpret this information. So he sort of swept it under the rug, but the angels kept coming to him. And eventually he developed a relationship so strongly with these angels that they allowed him access to heaven.
Wow.
Right? So
that's cool.
The whole book of Heaven and Hell is about a very, very, very specific, very detailed account of what he experienced in heaven. So he goes down to what communities are like, the distance between human beings, like where the type of people we hang out with in heaven, like the way things smell, every possible thing that you can think of.
Yeah. I'm going to have to read that. I'm interested. It's
different from what other people experience, because a lot of human beings, they come as a result of a near-death experience. They're like, oh, I was there for 5 minutes and then Jesus told me I had to go home. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But he spent like really large amounts of time there.
Wow.
And they trusted him. So he goes into what heaven is like, but he also goes in very detailed accounts of what hell is like. And it's very, very, very different than how we see it. Right. And
is it fire and brimstone?
No.
No.
It's not fire and brimstone. The interesting thing about what Emanuel Swedenborg says is that the people that go to hell choose to be there. But it's not a sort of fire and brimstone thing. It's more of, these people have different types of either addictions or different types of, conditioning that need to be sorted out. Mm. But the interesting thing about what he talks about hell is that it's not permanent. Oh. You eventually will get to a point
you can graduate
where when you don't want to be there anymore, and you can exit out of there.
Oh, cool.
So it's not a permanent thing.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
And even back then when they wrote the Bible, like people didn't have really a perspective of what eternity meant, because no one's ever experienced it before.
Right.
So the only thing that they can think of is, okay, well, you're going to burn in hell for eternity. But what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean from the perspective of God? Because, you can't have an experience of nothing in the way that some people that believe that sort of fire and brimstone thing go. But Emanuel Swedenborg just talks about like, it's a choice. People that go there for a certain period of time, and then they wake up and realize maybe their divinity inside, and then they just find their way out.
Wow. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to read that.
Yeah, you should. I'll send it over to you. The reason why I brought up Emanuel Swedenborg is he also talked a lot about the Akashic Records.
Ah, okay. Very cool.
So all these different people that, and he was also an inventor too,
Can you imagine having Archangel Michael as your homie? Just right? Like, hey, what are you doing this weekend?
Hey, he's like, hey, what's going on?
Want to come to heaven?
Yeah. He's like always there, right? I imagine like, because he's like a multidimensional, he can be in probably a million different places at once. Mm-hmm. I more often than not, he's probably looking at me like, always like, I can maybe see him with my third eye. He's looking at me like, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I'm saying? For sure. Because I feel like I can feel the presence of angels around me a lot, right? And there are some people also go through this too, where they find feathers on the ground just randomly. I found a feather on the ground the other day. I meant to tell you and I forgot to tell you that. Yeah, that means your angels are nearby. It doesn't even have to just be Michael though. It could be like Archangel Gabriel or Uriel or Zuriel or all the different Raphael, but they say that if you find like a feather on the ground, it means your angels are nearby. Yeah. I found, we went to Catalina. And I was walking and I stopped and I was on my phone and I, was looking at my phone, but I could also see the ground and I saw a feather there. I picked it up. Yeah. I was like, I hope it doesn't have lice. I put it in my hat. Yeah. I wonder because there's this sort of debate about like, well, angels at some point were human. Mm-hmm. And if they have the ability to help you navigate through this sort of worldly existence, then they have to have an understanding of what emotions feel like and what the human experience is. So I wonder if they're hanging out with us, if they have preferences, like, do they listen to Bob Moses? And do they listen to that song? And they're just like, I fucking love that song. I love that song. That's a great song. They're like, why did you turn that song off? I wasn't finished listening. Yeah. Maybe they get pissed along with me when I don't know if you go through this, but like when you're driving in your car and you have your GPS on, GPS lady has impeccable timing. Let me tell you, because she always tells you to turn right at the best parts of every song. Oh yeah. Every time. Every single time. Yeah. Every time. Every single time. It's like you're that chorus comes and you're getting ready to hear and you're like amped up and then like, she's like, turn right here. Just totally interrupts it. Like, oh. Yeah. Yeah. Wonder if the angels are on the other side. They're just like, damn GPS lady. I was actually in a car with a friend a while back. It's my friend Jessica, and she had the GPS on because we were trying to get somewhere in LA, and the GPS lady kept talking to her. She's like, turn right here. And she was ignoring it. I don't know if you noticed this, but if you start ignoring the GPS lady and you take the wrong turn, she becomes angry. Yeah. She becomes increasingly more frustrated with you. It's like, turn right here. And then it goes to another recording. It's like, turn right now. Yeah. Turn right now. You turn. Yeah. You turn. Yeah. And I remember Jessica, like actually speaking to the car. She's like, don't tell me how to live my life. Right. Yeah. I'm sick of you. Yeah. Yeah. So I wonder what they have to have a sense of humor, obviously, right? Oh, for sure. Yeah. They're there and they're probably some of the most compassionate beings alive. Yeah. Because otherwise they'd be telling you what to do too. So, we talked about that a few episodes back about asking for their help, and a lot of people don't know how to do that. Yeah. And I didn't even know you were supposed to. Yeah. So that's on the list of things to do if you're trying to access the Akashic Records is to clearly state your intention and request that any guides, whether you know them or not, to assist you. Yeah. And we had a conversation about this with asking angels for help. I thought, they're with you all the time. Can't they see that I'm struggling? I'm in distress. Yeah. Like that's a sign. Help. Right, I need help. Right. Yeah. But no, apparently you have to ask for it. It's that whole free will thing. Because to them, whether or not it's good or it's bad, it's still good. Yeah. Because they're like, okay, if you're getting something that you want, obviously you did the work in order to get that. But if it's a situation where you're not getting something that you don't want, there's obviously a reason why you don't have it. Right. Right. So it becomes a question about lack. You know what I mean? And absolutely. You actually told me we even talked about it today. You saw some angel numbers. You saw 111, you saw 1111, and then you also saw 1212 today. And that was after a conversation that we had. Yeah. About 3 times. Yeah. Yeah. 3 times in one day. That was a first. And that has happened to you before when it came to, that stuff that I guess happened in the house a while back. Yeah. With like those other spirits that were going on. Yeah. The second you asked for help, you started seeing those numbers all over the place. All over. Yeah. That's an important thing. I feel like if anybody's listening and you want to at least begin your adventure and to trying to tap into the Akashic Records, you have to more or less kind of ask for help and permission. You're going to have to go through the fourth dimension. And Edgar Cayce actually has this account where whenever he would go into the Akashic Records, he would always go through this very shadow type of land first, because you have to go through the lower dimensions in order to get there. And trying to hear him explain the different energies there is, it's very abstract, because our minds can't really piece apart exactly what's in those realms. He just says that it doesn't feel very good, very muddy, and it's a very confusing place. And there's a lot of like lower dimensional dense energy there, right? So if you're going to take a journey like that, I mean, Edgar Cayce was something short of a saint. He probably had the help of many guides, but if you're going to go there, might as well ask your angels to help you out.
For sure. And that's also on the list. You're hitting all the stuff on the list. Did you read the list?
No, I didn't read the list.
So yeah, so that's number 5. So if you connect with another being, ask their name and clarify with them what you're looking for and what your intention is.
Yeah.
And that you want access to the records in regards to your question, because you are taking that same path, right? You're taking that same journey. So it is possible that you could run into another being on the way.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. I was like, oh shit, I didn't realize that I could run into somebody else.
Yeah. Even Raymond Moody, whenever he would do his astral projections, there was always like different beings in his room. And I think we talked about with that home energy clear. It's like or even like think Rose, because she sees a lot of spirits all over the place.
Right.
They're occupying a lot of our space, so once you enter into the astral, not surprised to me that you would see those type of energies there. But when I watch like YouTube videos about how to astral project, there's kind of 2 schools of belief that I noticed that are practiced there, which are people that are like, you got to be really careful. Otherwise the monsters are going to get you. Right. Right. And they make it seem like, only certain people are equipped to get through that, because otherwise you're going to be subject to psychic attack. Right. Which is a possibility. Absolutely. And I've experienced what that feels like. But if you are somebody that is a loving person, if you know how to just be a gentle, good, and kind person, that means something in the astral realm. Like that love that you feel, just your ability to love another person. It could be just taking care of your dog. Like that is a loving, compassionate act. That energy is the biggest currency in the astral realm. So the second you enter into the astral, that feeling is going to guide you to that experience. And instead of seeing these monsters in this sort of like really sort of creepy way, you're going to look at them and you're going to show a lot of compassion and love for them. Yeah. You're going to be like, oh, these are obviously lower lost beings. These are obviously lower dimensional lost energies that are just trying to find their way. Yeah. And as long as you approach them with that type of mentality, one, they don't want anything to do with you because they're not ready to have what you got. Right. And you're not going to be of any interest to them because light is not something that they gravitate towards. Right. They only sense fear. That is sort of like that infrared vision that they have. Right. It's kind of like whenever you run into a snake in the wild, like they're just as scared of you as you are of them. Exactly. They're not trying to mess with you. Yeah. Mind you though, I mean, I don't blame some people because some people, I mean, especially these authors, when they try and describe what these beings look like, they don't look very good. Yeah. They look like some of the most grotesque things that you could possibly imagine. And, but the one thing that's really, really important to remember about the astral realm is it isn't that these things were just intrinsically grotesque. Because I don't think that God creates, anything with the goal of scaring the shit out of you. Right. Well, the reason why I feel like beings look a certain way that happens to be kind of menacing and grotesque is because that fourth dimensional realm contains all the different darker sides of humanity. So, we've created things like horror movies and we've created all these different sort of grotesque scenarios in our waking life, and they register in this realm as a sort of image. So when we enter into the astral realm, we see these beings, what we're really seeing is just a product of our own conditioning, right? We identify it with creepy because that's what we've been born to identify as being creepy. Right. But, and I've thought about this too. When you sit down, like, even with like something that seems unsettling to look at, you ever think of like, why is it that people find something like that creepy? ever thought, like, I read this study one time, I'm kind of prefacing thing where it's like, when we see an image that is unsettling, maybe it could be like a horror movie or something like that. First instinct for most people is they get scared. Like, they don't want to see that.
Right.
But why is it that they feel that? Well, the body and the mind and the spirit have this longing and yearning for symmetry. Mm-hmm. We identify symmetry as being healthy, right?
Right.
Like, there's this sort of inherent way that we look at another human being and then we know that they're healthy. Mm-hmm. So when we see those shapes out of order, when we see, like, you know, the complete opposite of that, we identify that with sickness.
Yeah.
Right. So
that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Right. There was some, I think it was on the History Channel or something, some study that they did, and they would put two photos of the same person side by side. Yeah. And in the second photo, they would like just slightly change the features of that person. Yeah. And then they would ask you, like, which photo do you think is more beautiful? Yeah. And people would always pick the photo where the person's face was perfectly symmetrical rather than with the small variations. Yeah. And I mean, really slight stuff, but when they're side by side, you can really notice that there is a big difference. Yeah. Yeah. I think that, like, if you're operating from the most purest form of awareness, you would see the same person in both photos. Right. So I feel like, and I've seen video movies. It was actually a show. I can't remember. It was actually like a show that I saw on Netflix where they were trying to do these studies off of, like, you know, why somebody was more compelled to vote for this person as opposed to another one. Mm-hmm. And they showed them just two examples of two different faces, and they always gravitated towards the one that was more pleasing. Right. Interesting. I think the examples that they used were when it came to committing crimes. Right. Okay. How we prosecute different people. So Ted Bundy. So basically what happened was, like, there was one man that, was, he had gotten arrested for, let's just say shooting somebody. Mm-hmm. And then there was another man, and one happened to be Caucasian, the other one happened to be black. And then they did this sort of blind study where they had a group of people come in and they told them the case. And then they said, well, how much time do you think that this person should get in prison? Right. So one group said this amount of time and the other group said this amount of time. And obviously the minority got more time. Wow, and really? It just shows you, that's sad, like, how deeply ingrained the conditioning that we have in our culture, which sadly it's unfortunate that the people that aesthetically look more pleasing to the eye get more of the attention, that get more of that pass for doing shitty things. Yeah, that sucks. That sucks. Yeah. But the Akashic Records. Yeah, we'll get back to the list. So we'll go over it pretty quickly for anyone that wants to know how to access them. Yeah. So the first tip is to decide what you want to know. Are you just browsing? What exactly are you doing? So you want to confirm the existence of the Akashic Records, or do you just want to see what's in there? Like, do you just want to see if it's real? You know, so you want to know what's in the box. Yeah. Show me what's in the box. So that was the first one. The second one was to do you have a specific question? So, and think about, like, clarifying that question. You know, if your question is, do I have any past lives that I need to heal? Maybe like look into that a little bit deeper, because we all have past lives we need to heal. That's true. Yeah. And hone in and have more of a specific question, because the more specific you are, the more tailored your answer. Yeah. It's interesting that we're talking about this. I mean, it's always good to have an intention, and I think that we were talking about this before the podcast about how that sort of, and I think this is the reason why I brought up Emanuel Swedenborg, because he has this thing called the law of correspondence, where everything in the spiritual realm manifests itself a certain way in the physical realm. And this is exactly the reason why I brought up Emanuel Swedenborg, is because the internet, like, the human being is always trying to recreate the information that it's being fed through this sort of spiritual realm. Right. I feel like on some level, on some sort of 0-point subatomic level, me and you every single person has their footing in the Akashic Records. Right. So even subconsciously, everything that we create, just like you said, everything that we invent is coming from this sort of data sphere of information. Right. So I liken it to the internet. Right. Because,
no one has ever seen the cloud before.
Right.
Right. We don't know where all this information flying above and a bunch of millions and tiny little pieces, like we don't ever see it. We only see the information that we get being fed through this computer or these search engines. But I was watched this talk by Deepak Chopra, and he likens the Akashic Records to the internet because it contains pretty much, you want to know how society is doing as a whole. I mean, it contains everything.
Everything.
Literally everything that we've ever thought, everything that we've ever come up with, any conversation that we've ever had, the internet has all of it.
Yeah.
You know, and going into our, maybe that Google search bar where we're going in and we're entering that question is the same thing as going into it through meditation, making an intention to try and get a certain type of information back.
Right. Yeah.
You know? So it's crazy to me because the internet just to us has always just been around, but it's always boggles my mind, and it gives me this huge amount of appreciation for life because somehow we came from, you know, a forest to a computer.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like where does
how do we get there?
influence come from?
Right.
Like there has to be a different type of intelligence that's working, either intrinsically through us or maybe in assistance with aliens. But the fact that we've gotten to the computer and now we're at a place where this entirely different dimension exists that a lot of people mistaken as being reality. And that just, you know, coexists with us.
Right.
You know, it's just that fractal way that life just sort of goes. Eventually, we're just going to continuously create these sort of fractal type of lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, we were, when we were talking about this earlier, I was thinking about Wi-Fi or radio. You know, like you're cruising down the road and the radio waves are in the air and you can pick up radio in your car anywhere just about, you know, so radio, Wi-Fi. And then I thought about magnets. I don't know why, but you know, whenever
that goes together with it.
Whenever you try to stick them together and then they'll like repel each other and then they'll flip over and attach each other, like, whoa.
Yeah. It's like two lovers.
Yeah.
You know, we can kind of liken it to the conversation we had the other day about like, whenever you have masculine and feminine energy, there's this sort of attraction. But whenever there's too much of masculine, it's like too much of the positive, and then the magnet repels it. Yeah. You know, like it kind of like needs that balance. And in our minds, our brains are exactly like these antennas. I mean, we forget that we have electricity shooting through our brains. Yeah. That are sending information to all these different neurons. And it's just about tapping into the right frequency, whether it be happiness or whether it be sadness or the Akashic Records, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we'll get to the last two. One of the other tips was to use whatever meditation practice you prefer and enter that relaxed open state, and then give yourself some time to let your energy settle in and center. Yeah. And then of course to ask to be allowed to access the records, have your question prepared, and then stay in an open receptive state.
Like, because please, can I enter?
Yeah. So I actually did an Akashic meditation yesterday. So I could share the experience, you know, if something happened, nothing happened, I didn't get any information. But don't give up after the first try, because it typically takes a couple of tries before you get information. And that was the last tip.
Imagine if you got into and you got to like the door and you're like, he was like, oh, can I enter into the Akashic Records? And he was like, what's the password?
I'm like, oh man, I don't know.
He's like, what's the password? That would be so funny. Yeah,
that would be funny. So, so the last tip was if you go and you don't get any information, to write down any kind of visions that you did have or any kind of memories that you had during your meditation, because that may have been a download of information that may not make sense now, but later when you try again, it may all come together.
Yeah, it's like what Sadef said. There's no such thing as an experience like that void of meaning.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's just in the same thing when it comes to dream recall, you know, like a lot of people go through this thing when it comes to astral projection or lucid dreaming, where it's like they get frustrated at a certain point because they're not, you know, flying through the sky around the Eiffel Tower in like France in like one night, but it takes time to develop that type of muscle.
Right.
you know, and if you want to go even deeper, it even can get down to the diet that you have, what holds your body down in sleep. You know, I think there are really, really, really important things to note about, you know, the people that don't eat before they go to bed.
Yeah.
You know, like you the same reason why when you do ayahuasca ceremonies, like they tell you to like fast or you have a very, very strict diet for like a week or two prior to having that experience. Like your whole body needs to be prepared for something like that. But, you know, your third eye is a muscle just like anything else. And all you have to do is practice. So for me, it's like when you wake up, write those dreams down. The second I started writing them down, I started just being able to recall these memories.
Right. Yeah. I need to start keeping a dream dictionary. I've been having a lot of dreams lately.
Yeah.
Some weird shit too.
Really? Like what?
Yeah. Weird. Yeah. Nothing I want to get into.
Yeah. You're like running around the streets in an animal onesie.
Yeah. No, that's real life.
Real life?
Yeah. No.
Oh man.
I haven't ran around the streets in an animal onesie in a while.
You would
I would be right now if I was at Burning Man.
That's true.
Know. Gosh, what a bummer.
I know. I actually went on, there have been friends that I know of that have been frequenting Burning Man for a long time. They've actually even done events there at certain camps. They have this thing going on right now that is like a virtual Burning Man.
Yes. So virtual Burning Man started and we got an Oculus so we could check it out.
So you can try it?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You have to have that in order to experience it.
Yeah.
I've been in that environment once because back when there's this place called Wisdom in LA, you've been there.
Yeah, I love that place.
For the people that are listening, it's this 360 dome that was down in the Arts District. And a part of the experience was they had VR headsets that people can kind of futz around with. And one time I put on the Oculus and they had that sort of Burning Man environment.
Yeah, the graphics have really stepped their game up.
Really?
I mean, it is really, really good. I was really impressed.
Wow. So
yeah, with the changes and that was what, year before last, whenever we went to Wisdom, whenever you were doing your sound bath there.
Yeah. So you, when you put on the Oculus and you were going through this environment, what was it like?
It was, so I didn't do the Burning Man environment yet. I just did some of the Oculus stuff that they had on there. Cause there's different apps. It's just like anything else where you can download apps and access, you know, their virtual stuff. And pretty incredible. I mean, pretty amazing. The graphics are a lot more clear and, very submersive. They even have some like cool meditation, like nature scenes and, you know, total psychedelic fractal places where you feel like you're inside the fractal. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I know a fellow named Torquem G. He's actually a fellow sound healer, and he does a lot of work with, I think it's DP programmers and Michael Strauss. And they're the ones that do a lot of those events at Wisdom that involves a lot of those like 360, like 3D mapping type of experiences.
Yeah.
I saw him actually messing around with some VR program, and he created an actual, I think it was like an old sort of Armenian temple.
Ooh.
That apparently, like, I'm guessing this is what he's going to do is you take that design and you somehow connect with the people that do this Burning Man environment. And he can probably showcase that in that environment, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And apparently you can go into, like, Burning Man has different art installations and people just go cruise around and check them out. And then there's, you know, just a million places to hang out and connect with people.
Yeah.
So I guess it's like up to 1 million people can be in one of these experiences at one time. So whenever you're in that experience, you're in that experience with like 1 million other people, which is cool.
Did you see a lot of people when you were in it?
So I haven't done the Burning Man one yet. It started on Sunday. So I haven't had a chance to go down there and check it out. But
do you have to pay to go into that environment?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think, I don't know.
And
I'm not sure.
I have so many questions, only because I'm interested.
You have to ask Jeremy. He's
in
like the
technology.
techie. Yeah.
It's like, what do you do when you got to walk around? Like, am I going to end up like
bumping into someone
down the street with like a headset on?
No, I mean, so the headset that we have has like joystick controllers.
Oh, I see.
So you're not actually walking forward like the old way, because people are getting hurt, you know, running into stuff and tripping over things. Because when you have that headset on, you feel like you're really in whatever environment it is that you're looking at.
And it just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah.
Like I went to, I forget the name of, I keep thinking like DreamWorks, but it's this VR place in LA. And they had this one that was based off of, I guess, a Pixar movie about dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And you walk into this place, they give you the headset and you get onto this sort of like, almost looks like a little tricycle type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the sensors in your hand and on your face. And then like, it literally felt so
like you were
real.
on a dragon?
It felt so real that I had trouble distinguishing reality.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah.
It's a very, very amazing experience.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So if you guys end up going into that burning environment, you should,
I'll let you know.
yeah.
I'll let you know how to
like pitch a tent in your living room.
Yeah. You should try it. I mean, yeah.
I don't have an Oculus, but.
Well, we have one. You can use ours.
Okay. Yeah.
Go check it out.
I would try that out.
Yeah.
Imagine if that's where we're going now.
Oh God, I hope not.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
Eventually
I need
everybody's
human connection. I need the smell of the sweat and the dirt in my eyes. I
agree.
I need that.
You don't ever get down to that conversation where it's like, oh, are you going to go to the Porter show? And your friend's like, I would, but my Oculus is broken.
No. I hope that never happens.
I don't think it will. We'll send out good vibes.
Yeah, we will.
We'll find a way. Actually, so, you know, comedy, I feel like, is one thing that's been really, really impacted by the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of those people, you know, of course, made their income by going to places like the comedy show and stuff like that, but they don't have any places for them to do their work. So now what they're actually doing is they're doing these sort of outside events in their homes, like in their yards.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I feel like is going to happen, is like people are just going to start doing events outside.
Yeah. I mean, we listen to comedy a lot whenever we're doing road trips.
Yeah.
We'll just get on and listen to, like, you know, recordings of different stand-up comics.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll be an extra revenue stream where you just pay for downloads to listen to comedy shows.
Yeah. Or they're starting to book drive-in theaters.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Like a drive-in
Bringing
theater.
it back.
Yeah. There was one thing that they tried, and actually Joe Rogan was talking about, it was kind of weird, where it's like you have a comic inside of an actual, like comedy theater, but he was the only one, like, the only person that's in there is the person that's doing the show.
Yeah.
And then there are a bunch of screens of people that Zoom call in to see it.
Oh, okay.
So it's like you can see the faces in these screens. Obviously, the energy isn't the same.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that they're doing with, you know, sports now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure you see, Jeremy watches the sports. Like I had my brother-in-law watches, I caught him watching a basketball game. And you
caught him watching a basketball game. It sounds so naughty.
Yeah. I was like, oh,
I caught him. I caught you.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no audience there. All there are these screens of people that dial into this feed online.
Yeah.
And you just see these little faces of people in their living rooms watching basketball.
Yeah. He's obsessed. He's watching basketball all the time now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people just really love it.
I'm just not a sports person.
Yeah. I'm not a sports person either. Yeah. I'm more of a podcaster.
Yeah, more of a podcast person. Me too. I'm more of a book reader.
More of a book reader. How's that Joe Dispenza book, by the way?
Oh, it's really good. Yeah, it's really good. I'm almost done, so
let me know how it goes when you finish it up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I think that we have a better understanding of how to get to the Akashic Records.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground tonight.
Yeah, I feel like I occupied my space with those different things that I can do in order to get there. So I feel like it may happen tonight, Jen.
Yeah,
I'm feeling lucky.
Check it out. Let me know. I tried. Yeah. I got nowhere. So I'll try again.
Yeah, we'll try it out. We'll report back next week.
Okay.
We'll try it out.
Sounds good.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you want to stay up to date on our most recent episodes, definitely like and subscribe. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and you can actually go directly to our website at www.divine-nobodies.com. We're also on YouTube. If you're more of a visual person and you want to watch the podcast, we have it available there too. And I think that's it, right? I think we kind of covered it. And we also have a guest in next week. Her name is Tyler Victoria. She's a tarot card reader. That's going to be pretty cool.
I'm excited about that. Yeah.
She has a really, really amazing story. So stay tuned for that. And until then, namaste, friends.
Namaste.
I like that one.